Pucks with Haggs is powered by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by PrizePicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 133rd episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. I'm your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe and get a premium membership. Get all of my Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. I also file columns 3 times a week for the Boston Sports Journal. Go to bostonsportsjournal.com and check it all out when you go there. Let's thank our sponsors too. While we're here, PrizePicks, of course. Can't forget about PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Also, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, of course. But download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Game time. That's right. All right. Let's kick off the show, which, by the way, it's going to be a mailbag episode. We're going to answer some of your questions. It feels like a good time to do that. With some events happening this week. Pretty entertaining, good win over the Colorado Avalanche to kick off the Bruins road trip out west. And then Saturday night, rough game in Utah where they lost 2-1 in overtime. Frankly, did not deserve to win. It really felt like the right outcome happened in that game, given the way that they played. And a lot of stuff going on in that game. Jim Montgomery barking at Brad Marchand on the bench. Another underwhelming performance from some of Boston's best players like David Pastrnak, Charlie Coyle. Marchand was okay, certainly not great. Some of the defensemen did not play very well. Jeremy Swayman was excellent. Cole Koepke scored his 3rd goal of the season. The 4th line was again phenomenal. But too many guys the Bruins are counting on among the forward group, just not really doing enough right now offensively and not really showing enough. And it was a game, frankly, I felt like watching on Saturday night, and maybe it's part of the reason that Montgomery lit into Brad Marchand. It's because there were a lot of passengers, it felt like to me, in that game against Utah. A lot of players that weren't ready to win that game, weren't playing like they were there to win. And they were lucky, frankly, to get out with a point, and a lot of that goes to Swayman being excellent in net in the 4th line again. But we're going to answer your questions on that, with the Bruins kind of middle of the road right now. 500 record, win one, lose one, playing okay, but nowhere near, I think, at the level that they should be playing at, that they could be playing at, that they have the talent to be playing at. But let's take a look at some of these questions here. All right. First one from Ray R. Joe, have enjoyed your Bruins coverage for as long as I can remember. Thank you, Ray. I understand the players, Pastrnak, Lindholm, and Zacha, wanting to play together. It's not exactly lighting the world on fire. Agreed? Zacha, over last season, turned out to be a pretty dependable center. Why would we take a first or second line center and put him back on the wing? Last I checked, we lost 2 centers on Bergeron and Krejci, and we're now using only 1 qualified replacement while expecting too much from Coyle, an outstanding third line center. Wouldn't the Marchand line benefit from a top 2 center? Couldn't that line be reunited on the power play or game-ending faceoff situations and not be on the same line at the expense of the team? Any merit to this perspective? Thanks for your time, Ray R. Ray, thank you for the thoughtful email, for the thoughtful question. I think it's a great question. Look, Charlie Coyle had over 20 points, over 20 goals, over 60 points last year, was mostly playing center with Brad Marchand. They had, yes, Jake DeBrusk. But it felt like they did pretty well. It felt like they actually had a good, successful season. Certainly, I thought Charlie Coyle, I had thought along the same lines you did, that at his best, he was probably a third-line center and a very good third-line center. But, he changed my perspective a little bit last year with the way that he played and how good he was with Brad Marchand and the chemistry that they had together. Yes, he's off to a slow start this year. I think he's got 1 point in 6 games. I think he's only got 6 shots on net. Just offensively, we're not seeing much of anything from Charlie Coyle right now. not strong enough on the puck, not aggressive enough with his shot, not really looking for his offense enough. Just too much of a passive player and not playing up to his size and strength and speed. So he has certainly not played great. Zacha at center, I think, has been okay. I don't think he's been a great center. He's not good on faceoffs. I do think he plays like a center, the two-way hockey, great back checker, great defensive player. Maybe they felt like playing him on the wing was going to free him up to shoot the puck more and to score more. And, maybe part of the thinking there is with Jake DeBrusk leaving and signing in Vancouver, they needed somebody to step up and score more goals on the wing and be more of a shooter and a finisher. And that Zacha has the talent to do that. Like, he's had, I think, the most scoring chances of anybody on this team so far this year. He hasn't finished a lot of them, but he's had some great opportunities. He's got 14, 15 shots on net in 6 games. And I think he's been set up quite a bit to be the guy with the really good offensive chances on that line with Lindholm and with Pastrnak. He just hasn't been able to finish, and that's kind of been the story throughout his career. Is at times either he doesn't shoot enough or he's not able to finish some of those chances that he gets, but he gets a lot of chances. So I don't hate him on the wing. I don't. I understand part of the thinking behind it. I just think Lindholm. You wanted to put Lindholm in a situation where he was playing with a couple of wingers and put him in a similar situation to what he was in Calgary a couple of years ago when he was with Matthew Tkachuk and when he was with Johnny Gaudreau. He ends up getting over 40 goals and 80 points. And it really unlocks his offense in addition to what he's able to do away from the puck and the two-way play and the Bergeron-esque qualities that he has that have been really good. So I think, I like the thinking, and I think it's sound logic to what they're doing. I don't think a lot of what's happening right now has to do with the coaching decisions of where these players are playing. I think a lot of this comes down to, some of those guys are not playing well. Charlie Coyle not playing well, not a good start to the year. And he has been in the past at times a little bit streaky. And he'll go into funks for a little bit. They avoided that last year, but it looks like the start of this year has been a little bit of a different story. Pastrnak has 3 or 4 goals already this year. But I really don't like the way that he's played. And I think by his own admission, he has not played well. I don't think he's skating particularly well. I don't think he's been very aggressive. I think at times he looks almost sort of careless with the puck and with what he's doing. There was a play last night where a puck kicked out to him. I can't remember if it was a pass or the puck just got out to him in the high slot. And he looked like he was trying to do some fancy slingshot shot of his that he does sometimes. And he just lost the puck. And he went from having a potential great scoring chance, grade A scoring chance in the best middle part of the ice in the offensive zone, center cut, middle ice in the offensive zone in the slot, where you're going to get your offense, where you're going to score from, especially if you're him. You got to score on that 99 out of 100 times and get a goal out of a chance like that. And he just fumbled it away. And it looked so casual the way he did it. And it really just, it was an indication to me that Pastrnak just was not into that game, just was not fully invested. And you look at the end result, he had, I think, 1945 of ice time against Utah, 2 shots on net, that's it. 3 giveaways, takes a bad tripping penalty, needless one, in overtime that leads, it wasn't a power play goal, but right after the penalty got killed, Utah ends up scoring the game-winning goal. So essentially it was because of the penalty. So, it was one of those games, Pastrnak has some games where he's phenomenal, and most of the time, great offensive producer. He's on. When he's on, he's dangerous. He's one of the most dangerous offensive players in the NHL, goal scorer, probably will end up being the most prolific and best sort of pure goal scorer in Boston Bruins franchise history. Now, everybody's going to say Phil Esposito, great scorer. He was a big body that scored a ton around the net, was like a power forward type sort of. But obviously great offensive player, had a lot of skill. But I think Pastrnak, has the classic sort of goal scoring skill that the Bruins haven't had a ton of players like that. Rick Middleton's another guy that was kind of like that scored a lot. But I think when it's all said and done, you're going to look at the numbers he's going to put up. You're going to look at how he plays, like just what he was, the sort of electrifying skill that he has, and the shot and the sort of the fancy things that he does, and some of the creative ways that he scores. And you're going to look at Pastrnak as the greatest goal scorer in Bruins history. So we're talking about a phenomenal, like probably Hall of Fame level player here. But when Pastrnak either doesn't seem fully invested in what's going on, doesn't have his A game, isn't operating at like a level, a high enough level, he can be tough to watch sometimes. And that game against Utah was tough to watch. Not only was he not a positive player and not a player that was really doing anything to help them win, he was doing things that ended up causing them to lose. And he just was not a net positive player in any way, shape, or form in that game. And for my money, even though he's got a bunch of goals this year, I don't think he's been even close to as good as he can be in the early part of the season. And that's not good. That's a bit of a troubling sign. And I think it's part of the reason that this top six has not been operating at anything close to full efficiency and has been, frankly, outplayed by the fourth line at every turn. Too many guys, whether it's Pastrnak, whether it's Marchand, whether it's Coyle, whether it's Zacha, whether it's Trent Frederick, whether it's Morgan Geekie, whether it's Justin Brazeau, who really hasn't done anything offensively. You go down the list, and Max Jones and Riley Tufte, those guys have not really caught on in any way, shape, or form with a line or in a role yet with the Bruins as well. Just not doing well. And it hasn't been good to watch. And it's a problem right now. And it's something that Jim Montgomery needs to figure out and that this Boston Bruins team needs to figure out if they're going to start having success. So I don't think all of that is like solved by putting Pavel Zacha back in the center spot. I actually am okay with Charlie Coyle being the second line center. I think he earned that right, and he showed that he could do it last year. And that I think, until they get another bona fide top six winger, I think Zacha probably will stay on the wing because he's one of the better scorers that they have. And maybe they want him thinking about that and focusing on that more than, being very, because I have a feeling when Zacha plays center, he's kind of like my son Finn is this way too. Okay. He plays center a lot. When he plays center, he focuses so much on the defensive side of it and so much on kind of being a third defenseman and making sure that everything is, taken care of in the defensive zone. And he's very slow and low on the breakout and all that stuff, that he doesn't think offense enough. He doesn't get out on offense, and he's not ever at the front of the offensive rush. And, he's always sort of trailing the wingers going up the ice because he's making sure the D zone is taken care of, as a good center should, before he goes up the ice. Zacha reminds me so much of that with the way that he plays. I think when he plays center, he's very much defense focused. And I think it's because he wants to win. I think he's a competitive guy. I think that's what, some players that play center, the ones that really want to win, the ones that really want to compete, the ones that are team first instead of stats first and offense first, they think that way and they play that way. And I think Zacha is that same kind of guy. And maybe they feel like him playing on wing kind of frees him up a little bit to think more offense and to just rush up the ice. Because that, again, when I watch my son play, it's the same kind of thing. He, like, when he plays wing, he's a little more like, staying up high for the breakout and be leading the rush, going up one of the side ends and really like at the front of the rush instead of trailing it. And I think playing wing allows you to do that. Like, it's funny, it's when they're young, they're all over the place and they don't necessarily play good positioning and play up high when they're on the wings. But once they start doing that and learn the position, like, I think wing is the easiest thing in the world. Like, the responsibilities are fairly simple. Most of the time, you're just thinking offense and going and pushing the puck up the ice and sort of skating your lane when you're regrouping or coming up. But it really frees you up, I think, when you play wing to just think more offense and not have to worry about the defense. So maybe that was the thinking part of the thinking anyway, behind moving Zacha to wing. But I think it's interrelated with DeBrusk leaving and the personnel that they have and, not really basically being one top six winger short until the trade deadline, which it seems like now. But great question, Ray. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you've enjoyed my Bruins coverage, and I hope I can continue to provide you with more that you like. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and pretty simple. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks because I'm going to take some of my observations from other fantasy football and throw them right into Prize Picks. Players that are going off. Kyler Murray had a great start to the season. He's kind of cooled off a little bit now, so I maybe would stay away from Kyler Murray. But that's just an example of the kind of things you can go after in Prize Picks. This week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill for more than 97.5 receiving yards and Saquon Barkley for more than 67.5 rushing yards. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. What's better than that? It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. Charles Viglione1 says, Brazeau, Coyle, and Geeky not producing so far this season. Maybe time for call-ups from Providence. Not yet. I think it's still early for that. But Brazeau and Coyle need to get it going. There's no or Brazeau and Geeky, excuse me. Geeky especially, I think really needs to get it going. But Brazeau, if he gets in the top 6 spots, he needs to get it going as well. These guys need to take advantage of these opportunities because what's going to happen and what Geeky started the year with Coyle and Marchand, but what's going to happen, I feel like, is what I think is what I anticipated was going to happen all year, which is that the Bruins are going to go through an audition of sorts for different players there. They're going to go by committee and try a bunch of players there and see if anybody can be a good fit, with most likely the scenario being that nobody really seizes it. Nobody can really take hold of it for the entire year. And then when you get to the trade deadline, they're going to bring in somebody and it'll push everybody down a slot and maybe make the forward group a little more functional. Because it feels like right now it's missing a piece. But in the meantime, these guys have, Brazeau and Geeky has coming off of his best offensive season. He's a guy that I think Marchand and Coyle wanted to play with, but he was not able to do much with it. He's not the fastest guy in the world. I like his rugged play. I like how strong he is on the puck. He's got a good shot. He thinks the game pretty well offensively. He's got kind of an old school style game to him that I really like, but not the fastest guy in the world. Definitely not going to light the world on fire with a skill level. It's hard skill more than eye-popping, dazzling skill, but still really effective. I just feel like he's probably, and there's a lot of Bruins forwards that kind of fit under this category. He's probably better off as a third line player, a third line winger than a second line winger. Brazeau, though, I think he's a guy that if you put him there for a little while, I think he would produce. And he's got a classic big man's game around the net. He's got great size. There's a lot of things he can do well. But he's also still a little bit of an unproven talent offensively and what he can do over the course of a whole season, even though he's shown that he can play, obviously, at this level. You need to be able to produce consistently if you're going to be a top 6 guy, and he hasn't been able to do that to this point. So we'll see. But as far as call-ups from Providence, look, Merkulov, Lysell, Riley Duran, Farinacci, there's a bunch of guys down there. None of them had super great camps, and I don't think they're going to get called up until they really light it up in Providence and show that they're worthy of the call up and really earn it. I just don't think they're at that level. I think the only viable solution, the only other thing that's out there that they could try right now is Tyler Johnson, who is still with the team, still practicing at home, not traveling with the team, not signed to a contract, still on the veteran tryout agreement. But I feel like the Bruins would have cut him loose by now. I feel like he would have left the organization if he was not going to eventually get signed. I think the Bruins have told him to hang tight, wait, and they will eventually figure out a way and free up the salary cap space to do it. Signing Jeremy Swayman to a bigger contract than they anticipated, his average annual value going much higher than or a decent amount higher than they thought it was going to, I think wiped out whatever extra money they thought they might have had to sign a guy like Johnson to a $750,000 contract or something like that. The veteran minimum that a guy that's on a tryout agreement would get. But eventually with IR, maybe they make a trade. There's different ways where they'll free up salary cap space to, I think, eventually stow enough away where they'll be able to sign him and make it work salary cap wise. They're just not there yet. Don't forget, and I've mentioned this multiple times, Danton Heinen last year was on the same situation, was a veteran camp tryout, did not sign until October 30th, right before Halloween. The Bruins were like 8 or 9 games into the regular season, and then finally he signed after hanging around for the first month. So this is kind of the way of doing business and how the Bruins operate as far as maximizing the salary cap and getting the most out of it. So I wouldn't be shocked if in the next couple of weeks Tyler Johnson signs, and if and when he does, I feel like he showed that he can absolutely be in the mix here, and he can add to what they're doing, and he can add some offense. He can add some veteran ability to be flexible and versatile and play up and down the lineup, play different positions. I think he would help them quite a bit, and I think he has the offensive wherewithal, and he's got the track record to be able to play a top 6 role potentially with guys like Coyle and Marchand too. So I feel like Tyler Johnson is signing and putting him in the lineup is more likely as a reinforcement type move than bringing guys up from Providence. I just don't see that as better than the status quo. I think we saw that in training camp, and I think it's going to take some time for the opinions to change as far as the Bruins go with those players. So I like the suggestion, but I would say it's probably going to be more likely Tyler Johnson than Providence call-ups, and maybe that happens in the next week to 10 days. And maybe the urgency goes up if the forwards continue to kind of flail around and underwhelm and not play up to their potential. But, we'll see. All right, this is from Garrick27. They are not as talented as they have been recently, but give it a minute. They are still a good team and will play better. Yeah, I mean, it's early in the year. It's a work in progress. I think the Bruins last year did not play particularly well in the first month, just 6 weeks of the season, and they kind of built. The thing is, last year they were getting results even though they weren't playing well, and even now they're still winning some games. Like, they're treading water. They're not killing it by any means, but they're not like basement dwellers like the Buffalo Sabres in the Atlantic Division. So I think they're doing okay, and they're not as talented as they've been recently. Are they that much less talented than they were last year, especially after adding guys like Zadorov and Elias Lindholm? I'm not sure. Like, I think there's a comparable talent level to last year, probably even more, just given the upgrades that they brought in. But still now, and this was the case last year, it feels like, and this is kind of like the old Harry Sinden days. It always felt like they were like one sniper short. They were one offensive player short from really having a full deck. It feels like right now, and it felt like this last year too, the Bruins were one top 6 forward away, and last year it was the number 1 center, but one top 6 forward away from having like a full set, a full complement of weapons, a full sort of roster of forwards. They let Jake DeBrusk go and they don't have a replacement. So like right now, until I think they bring somebody in, probably at the trade deadline, I feel like they're going to be patching holes and making do, missing a top 6 piece. And it feels like to me they have a bevy of third line candidates that they're just going to cycle through in the second line and keep trying to make do. And maybe one of them like has a good few months or can fill that hole for a while. But it feels like the general philosophy for Don Sweeney, and I think we might even have somebody that may have written this in a question or an email. The general philosophy is to put like sort of bottom 6 candidates or talent out there and see if one of them can rise to the occasion, where you end up with a bunch of third line level guys and you're maybe like a top 6 forward short. You know what team Boston sports fans are most excited about this time of year right now? It's not the Patriots, definitely not the Red Sox. I mean, there's plenty of Bruins fans that are very excited about the Boston Bruins, but I've got to tell you, I think the team that everybody's most excited about is the Boston Celtics. They're excited about NBA hoops coming back. They're excited to go to the Garden and watch the Celtics play, defending that world championship and watching Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and all of those guys that they've loaded up on their roster. And you know where the best place to get Celtics tickets is, to get tickets to the Garden, to see basketball games? It's our friends at Game Time. Yes, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets by using the app, by getting your tickets through the app. It's the most exciting time of year for a basketball fan. Just look at all the features on the Game Time app. I love the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows you the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Who detests, I raise my hand, surprise fees at the checkout? Game Time is not about that. They are about showing you upfront what the cost of the tickets are. I am all about that. You can get seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy the tickets. Lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. If you're looking for Celtics tickets, Game Time is the place to go. You got to take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the Celtics. And oh, by the way, you can get Patriots tickets, you can get Bruins tickets, you can get concert tickets, comedy tickets, whatever you want. But we're talking the Celtics right now. You can use all of those things at Game Time. So create the Game Time app, go to the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, download the Game Time app. It's super easy to use. Create an account and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today for all of your Celtics and NBA tickets, folks. What time is it? It's game time. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now. You know, we'll see if that changes, but I feel like that's where we are right now. But to Garrick 27's point, they are a good team. I think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to be better than they are. The one question I would have at this point, especially after watching the video of Jim Montgomery like barking at Brad Marchand on the bench after, and Brad Marchand had a terrible offensive blue line turnover. He was trying to hang on to a puck, which, by the way, the coach wants them to do that. He tells them to hang on to pucks and make plays. So, you know, that's not something I think any hockey coach wants to see, is you trying to like you stick handle through 2 or 3 guys and then give it up at the offensive blue line. But there's also that other part where, you know, they're being encouraged to hang on to pucks and to make plays. So maybe it's at times that can be a difficult, like tightrope to walk. But he gives up an offensive blue line turnover. It goes the other way, turns into a goal. The goal gets overturned because it was offside, and it got challenged successfully by the Bruins. But that didn't stop Jim Montgomery from lighting into Marchand on the bench. It looked like he was dropping F-bombs. It looked like he was yelling at him, kind of gave him a tug on the shoulder on the bench to let him know that he was talking about him. And there was like no reaction from Marchand. He was just like looking straight forward, staring straight forward the whole time. But you know, that my question and my wonder is just with like some of the, you know, with Montgomery's contract situation, with the way the team is performing, like with all this stuff swirling around, is it going to get to a point where like something's going to happen here? Because if they underachieve at all, like that could be a time to make a move with the coach, especially if it's something the Bruins have been considering anyway. So I think this is something we're going to watch closely and take a look at, and that may be one of the moves to get more out of this team. That may end up being where Jim Montgomery kind of, you know, pays the price in order to get a message across to everybody if they're not playing up to the level. And we'll see if that's the case. But certainly with guys like Joe Sacco, Chris Kelly, Jay Leach on the Bruins bench, there's a bunch of candidates of people that could be a head coach on this team if they wanted to make a move. Internal candidates that I think the Bruins would feel very good about. So that is something interesting to watch. And it's very noticeable when you don't see Montgomery doing that much on the bench, you know, really going after his players, and you see him go after the captain. In this case, it's a guy you can go after, and he's going to be able to handle it like maybe some of the younger players wouldn't be able to. But how is that going to play in the room? How is that going to play with the players? How's that going to play with Marchand? I think all that stuff's going to be interesting to watch. And I think that is something where, you know, that's a developing situation. I would keep an eye on it. All right. This is from CO2062. Joe, the Bees lost the Blues for the Cup and were tossed around. Zero physical presence, no power forward, no accountability. Sweeney put together a team of third liners, and it hasn't changed. There you go. Not a team of third liners. There definitely are maybe 1 or 2 too many third liners on this team, and they could use another pure goal scorer, another guy that's like a top 6 wing talent, and maybe not even a pure goal scorer, maybe more of like a power forward type guy. But they also like brought in guys like Max Jones, Riley Tufte, like a bunch of candidates to look at. Cole Koepke, who's been awesome. That you look, and maybe he gets some chances there too. That's somebody I didn't even mention yet that I think like you don't want to break up the fourth line because they're playing so well right now. But Cole Koepke looks like a guy that could play higher in the lineup and is playing at a level that you may want to look at him with guys like Marchand and Coyle. So that could be another interesting guy, and maybe that's somebody that eventually like played so well that they want to look at him there, and he performs in that role and never gives it up and changes the way that people look at him around the league and sort of changes his profile. So that's also another possibility. Although I would be loath to change the fourth line right now because they're playing Kostelic, Beecher, Koepke have been awesome, and you don't really, I think, want to mess with that. But like, look, what's going on with the Bruins right now, how much of it has to do with the 2019 Stanley Cup loss to the St. Louis Blues? Not much, I don't think. They're a good regular season team. They need to be better in the playoffs. They need to be better than they've been early in the season. But like, I don't think we need to rehash old history on this Bruins team. Okay. This is from Transcript Toad. Pasta is so damn bad in extra time, so bad defensively. Can somebody tell him to just curl and skate with the guy to lower angle? We would be better off without him in overtime, and I mean that. Were you saying that the other night when he was out there with Mason Lohrei and Matt Patra and he scores the game-winning goal because the three of them were like so dynamic offensively? Like you could see immediately, I think that was against Montreal, right? You could see immediately when they were out together on the ice. Like I thought, I was watching in the press box, and as soon as I saw Lohrei and Patra and Pastrnak out there, and I saw that the way they were passing, the way they were moving without the puck, just the way they were like coexisting as a trio in 3-on-3 OT. I was like, this game's over. They're going to score. Like, you could see it. You could see it coming from a mile away because they were just like, they looked dangerous as soon as they got out there. So Pastrnak has that in his bag too. Like, you can't ignore that. And it's always there. And he's that good. So I would always look at that as the upside. Yes, he's a high-risk player. Yes, he's going to kill you in overtime sometimes because he's going to make a mistake. That was a bad tripping call. Like, yes, you can argue maybe it wasn't a trip, but, like, his stick was by his skates. Like, what do you expect? That's going to happen sometimes, even if you don't mean it to happen. So you probably shouldn't do it in the offensive zone in a play way away from your net where it's kind of meaningless. Like, don't take a risk there to put your team down and make them shorthanded in overtime. Just don't do it. Pick your spots with that stuff. But like in general, we've already talked about Pasta. He did not have a good game last night, and he needs to be better. And I think you can look at him at the forefront along with some other players and forwards that we've mentioned as guys that need to be better. Brandon Carlo is a guy on the back end that I think has not been great at all. And I think he needs to be better too. So, we'll see. It's a work in progress with all these players, but a lot of Boston's best players really need to step it up, and that's kind of the bottom line. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at with your question and your observation, and I agree with that. I think we focus on the most recent result, and we focus on a Utah game that was not good, that they underachieved. We focus on that they haven't really put it all together so far this season. We focus on, guys that haven't really set the world on fire offensively to start the year. But it's a long year, and this is a good team. And let's see where we're at like a week, 2 weeks from now. The one thing I would focus on is like how Boston's best players continue to perform, how the interaction between Jim Montgomery and the players is on the bench and in different situations, how they respond to him, like challenging them at certain points, and how that whole thing is going to play out as it's happening pretty early in the season. And I think there's people, paying close attention to the way Montgomery's going to sort of act without contract security, without, additional years, with a kind of in a lame duck situation right now. That is very difficult for anybody to deal with. And I think it's something that we've all sort of been, directed to watch because it's a situation that bears watching and observing to see how it all plays out. And maybe he's feeling a little of that pressure, and that turns into him doing what he does and really reacting and snapping that way on the bench. So, we'll see. But I think that's something that bears watching just as much as the players and the way that they're performing. I think that the whole thing is all baked in the same cake. So it should be interesting. Thank you very much for the questions. That'll wrap up this mailbag edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. Let's thank our sponsors, Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's also thank Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. Any tickets, comedy tickets, concert tickets, sports tickets, any tickets you can think of. Buy them with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Game Time, that's right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this mailbag edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. We'll see you at the rink.